Hello, everyone. We are live, and today is another wonderful, awesome Thursday with another wonderful, awesome guest. So, just a few housekeeping tips for you. If you are joining us live, in the comments below, hashtag live, or if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, and do tell us where you are coming from. As you know, I'm coming from Mexico. That's where I live. This is where I do the interviews from. And my guest today is from the USA. We will find out where she is exactly in the USA. Also, StreamYard. Since we are on StreamYard, there's a strip above or below that says StreamYard. Would you please kindly click on that? That will give StreamYard permission to use your name. Because if you want to interact with us, then your name will show and we will know who has joined us, who's interacting with us, and we can go back and forth. Feel free to ask me a question. Feel free to ask my guests a question. Feel free to comment. And if you just want to react, then oh, we love those hearts. So give us a lot of hearts because you know it helps the algorithms. Okay, so usually what I tell you is I tell you a little bit about my guest. Multi-talented. I mean, a writer, an editor. She's a designer, a photographer, an author, a musician, an advisor, a soul advisor. And what she doesn't tell too many people is that she's a wonderful singer. All right. I did showcase her a song that she dedicated to a friend of hers that passed away. It was a beautiful song, and she sang that so beautifully. So, also, usually I tell you how we met. Well, she and I met. We have several mentors in common. Tony Robbins being one, Dean Graciosi, but most and foremost, the class world Maya Comerota, and we met on one of her programs. And it was really very interesting because the way I got to know my guest was Maya was talking about the importance of being authentic to yourself and listening to your inner voice, your intuition being your greatest guide. And so she mentions, at that time, how my guest couldn't be present because she was off to her boyfriend's son's wedding. And that's a story in itself. And I was so taken by this that I could never tell you the story. I'll have her tell you the story. So without any further ado, meet my guest. All right, Carmen Walsh. How are you, Carmen?
Hello, Lucy. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for being here. I know how busy everybody is. You are also, so thank you. I'm honored that you are here with us and that we're going to be, talking about what you do because it's so exciting. Tell me, you are in the USA. Where exactly are you?
Yes, I live in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania. Were you born there?
Well, technically, I was. I was born in Hanover, Pennsylvania, but I grew up in Maryland. So we were just 45 minutes, probably half an hour, actually. My parents were from Hanover. So I think that was the best hospital at the time, which is the only reason I was born out of state.
Ah,
Yeah. So I grew up in Maryland and then relocated to Pennsylvania almost 21 years ago.
okay. And now you're in Pennsylvania, right? Could
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about your background? I mean, people are always curious, and we have people that are from all over the world. Could you tell us how it was growing up in Pennsylvania a little bit? We don't want to spend too much time, but you were born there, you're there now, and how you got from there to where you are now, which is being a soul advisor.
Yeah. That's a
Where do you
long
start, right?
story. But
A little
yeah,
bit
so
about your background for sure.
yeah, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Maryland. I
Mhm.
grew up in pretty much farm country. So um not in a town, didn't really have neighbors to speak of, had a lot of cornfields around. And and so I learned to I was just the youngest of five kids.
Okay.
And I learned to entertain myself, let's say, right?
Okay.
I like to go out in the woods and down by the stream, and I love to read. I love to color, and I actually would design mansions that I would live in when I was older. And and it was a very musical family too. Everyone in our family played an instrument. My mom is actually still the organist at the church. She just had her 85th birthday. Hey, Jill.
Hey, Jill, thank you for joining us.
Did not know you were one of 5 too. Oh my goodness. And one of my brothers, this was a key thing in my childhood, is one of my brothers had epilepsy. Okay. And so that colored my entire psyche, my, everything really. A lot of things stemmed out of that. Things I had to overcome, things that probably helped me strengthen, all kinds of growth came out of that. And he actually passed away when I was 15 and a half.
Oh, wow. That's difficult. Yeah.
Difficult. So that's the beginning.
Yeah.
And I realized looking back, I've done a lot of things out of the normal way. I was really good at school because I loved school.
Okay. Unusual.
Yes, right. That's probably unusual in itself. But then I also, after my brother passed away, I found really restricted by school. Like when I would go and, the whole thing, like you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom, right? You have to have permission to do all these things.
Absolutely.
And, and people are still talking about like what clothes are in style and all this. And I think I just gotten to this point where like my brother just died and I can't
deal with these small
things. Yes, this all seems so trivial. Yeah. And so I actually quit school.
Oh, wow.
So I went from being like a top student to quitting school. And but I did it. I did it in a very intelligent way. I found out I could get my GED, right? And so I got my GED before my class graduated, and I went to I went to work. I got a full-time job and I worked for 2 years and then I decided to go to college. Right. So instead of going the normal, like everybody else does this, we go to high school, we go through 4 years of college, I didn't.
Charge.
Yeah. I decided to do something different.
Right.
So, and that's been a theme apparently in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, something like a death, you must have been very close to your brother. I mean, that affects somebody so much. I mean, and back then, I don't know about you, but you're much younger than I am. But back then, there was no way that you could process this. You would just kind of have to be in your suffering a little bit and going through your grief and doing it all by yourself. People didn't know what to do with you or with the situation,
That is so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I think for me, it was kind of a double whammy, right? It was dealing with his epilepsy for the, 15 years up to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably up till maybe 5 wasn't very conscious of it, but at a very early age, I took on a lot of responsibility. Right. And then he passes, right? And we're not, and our parents weren't taught how to deal with things.
No.
And so I'm left in our house with my parents who are grieving, and it's me, like I'm the only one left.
Yeah.
So I did kind of just hunker down and put a big protective shell on, and did not process for decades, really.
Yeah. And that happens, and we don't know how, so many ways that it comes out. You're absolutely right. Jill says, yes, people don't talk a lot about how to process grief. This is still very needed in our world, and I certainly agree with that, Jill.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. So you went to work, but you were part of the corporate world, weren't you? I mean, for quite a few years, and then there was a marriage somewhere in between.
Yeah. So the marriage came first.
Okay.
I met my ex-husband. I met him 2 months after my brother died.
Okay.
So we can just see already that this is going to be unhealthy.
Right.
Because I haven't processed grief. I have no idea how to be in a healthy relationship. And so that went on. We dated for like 6 years, and then we got married. So I was just 21, like a
Wow.
month past my 21st birthday, and we got married. And it only took about a year for us to realize that this is not the right thing. So we got divorced, and I've been single, technically single, ever since. And I am now engaged, but we'll get to that.
Well, I mean, that's going to bring us to that story.
Right.
I heard from Maya, so I can't wait for the audience to hear that story.
Yeah. So I did go into corporate world. So I went to college. I got my bachelor's degree in English. I concentrated in writing, and I went to work for a pharmaceutical benefit management company. And I went to work for them because they were 5 minutes from my apartment.
Okay.
That's
Very
why.
Practical.
I was like, I refuse to be one of those people that drives for 2 hours to work every day. So I knew I could write well, I knew I could type well. So I got this administrative assistant position 5 minutes from my apartment. And then I ended up spending like 6 years there. And I learned, all kinds of things about the healthcare industry. And then a personal issue came up with someone at the company where I was like, this no longer feels good to me. And I quit. I quit my job 3 months after I bought my house. Again, not the usual way of doing things, not something I would highly recommend.
But you listened to your gut. It didn't feel right. And, you didn't want to be there. And so, something came out of that was very positive. Sure.
Yeah. So I actually started my own business. So I had my own writing and editing business for about 14 years. And it actually went really, really well, money-wise. I did well. I was miserable. So, and it was because the work I was doing it did not light up my soul at all.
Okay.
It was very dry. It was very focused on making money.
Right.
All
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. So, and things the universe moved things along that industry itself changed. So the money from it, my income started falling and decreasing. So I was like, oh, I need to do something different, and I want to do something different. Right. So I went completely a different way and started a local arts promotion, which came out of me sharing my photographs. And then I was like, I don't actually like talking about my own photography. I would actually much prefer talking about other people's art. So and that's how I got to know people here in Pennsylvania, where I had moved and knew no one.
Yeah.
I volunteered for an arts organization. So that's, it was just this beautiful, like, it just things would just happen. Right. Not that I didn't work hard. I did, but I just went with the flow,
Interesting.
Yeah. So I did that for a number of years and promoted over, I think, 80 local artists here. There's so many amazing, talented people here. And it was a joy, to do that. And I also found out, what? I'm not a salesperson. I can't sit in a gallery and wait for people to come in. This does not light my soul up, right?
So we pivot again.
Yes, it was a new pivot. So I needed more income.
Okay.
So I actually got a real job where somebody else pays me a paycheck. And it was exactly what I needed at the time. And I'm actually still in that job. So I do have a full-time job right now. Oh, okay. And I basically work as a paralegal, but it's in education.
All right.
So there's no money involved in what I do. I work on agreements, I work on contracts.
Okay.
But it's really just to make sure students can go do field experiences. And so I'm helping
that's interesting.
Students achieve their dreams, right? That's the way I look at it. I was like, my job enables other people to do what they need to do to achieve the dreams that they have for themselves and their families. So I love that.
Absolutely. So, and you're still doing that because you love it,
I don't love staring at the computer 8 hours a day, which I don't actually. I've gotten much better at getting up and taking a walk in the middle of the day, giving myself breaks and stuff, and realizing it can be easier than the way I used to make it.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with social media. Make sure that social media doesn't use you. You use social
exactly
media, because otherwise it can be unfulfilling, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's that's so interesting. So, are we near the story yet?
Yeah, sure.
I want my audience to hear the story that I heard when I first heard about you on Maya's. I can't remember, was it an X Factor program that she had? Maybe, I don't know. But we've been on several programs with her, so she's a wonderful coach herself, and so. But it's all about you now today. So I want to hear about that story. And I want my audience to hear about that story, because it is, it is you listening to your intuition. And obviously I'm listening to you. You're very strong where that goes. You've been, even every time you pivot, you knew it was time to do it. You didn't know where it was going to take you, but you are open with the universe and just to be open, really.
Yeah.
Feel your gut, as I like to say, because we didn't even use the word intuition way back then. Everybody used to say, how does it feel in your gut?
Follow your gut. Yeah.
Follow your gut.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So it was Born for This Live was the event.
Okay.
And I remember what happened is I had met a man who absolutely completely fell in love with. Relationship was wonderful. And he came to me one day and he said,
that this is the best method, trusting ourselves, our gut, our intuition.
Trusting our intuition. Absolutely. Yeah. And so he came to me and he's like, I don't understand why, but I need to break up with you. Mm. And it was super hard. And yet I knew that there was nothing wrong between us. Mm-hmm. So I was able to actually be calm when he told me that. And we had a conversation. I was like, okay, mm-hmm. Like, I love you. I know you love me. And this is apparently just something that needs to happen right now. Right. But I'm not taking this as this is the end of us. So I never interpreted it that way. Mm-hmm. And so we, went our separate ways and meanwhile, I know Maya has this Born for This Live event coming up, which I plan to attend. Right. It's a 3-day event. You want to be there live, right? It's virtual, but you want to be there live time, right? So you can participate. And so I intended to, and she changed the dates. And when she announced the new dates, I looked at it and it was the same date. The one day was the same date as my now ex-boyfriend's son's wedding. Okay. So now I had every intention previously, like I knew about the wedding for like a year before, right? So I already knew that date. And so I got this, I was like, okay. I see myself at this wedding. Now, mind you, we're not together right now. Right. And he's not said, and we were communicating a little bit, but there's no, like, we're back together. There's no plans for the future. There's none of that. And yet I'm still like, okay, I see us at the wedding together. So I thought, okay, what do I do? And like, do I wait? Do I, to tell Maya, like, I don't think this is going to work because, or I will be there if I'm not at the wedding. And I was like, no, none of that feels right. The only thing that feels right is telling her I won't be there live because I will be at this wedding. Were you visualizing back then? Or, I mean, did you know about? Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't think I did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But with that relationship with him, that's why I was so able to stay in faith with it, because I did see future visions of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had very clear visions of us like being like in our 70s and 80s, like sitting on our porch at our lake house that we don't have yet, right?
What?
Like, but that's what I would see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would see our like his kids being there and some of their, you know, the grandkids and stuff. Like I saw all that and it felt really good.
Right.
And so I didn't really have the doubt. Like I'm like, well, obviously it's happening. Like that's like, you know what I mean? It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. I don't know how we're getting from here to there, but somehow it's gonna happen.
And you were strong enough to say, you know, Maya, I'm not going to be at your event because I'm going to be this
I
way.
did.
That's amazing. You know, Jill says we are reminding ourselves that this is the best method, trusting ourselves, our gut, our intuition, you know, and it's like gravity. It's just how it is.
Just how it is.
You know?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, cool. Like Jill says, you know, the pictures you saw, you know, or you know, I mean, visualization is really important, but a lot of people don't. I mean, I think we do it and we don't even know we're doing it, you know?
Yeah. And I think actually, I think what we were just talking about is important is I wasn't forcing those images.
Yeah.
I wasn't creating them. Like, because you can, right, you can visualize on purpose.
Right.
But these were images that I would get. I wasn't searching for those images. Like they just came and I took the moment and went, oh, well, that feels really good. That feels right to me, you know? And then you can on purpose revisit them,
Right.
but it feels like they're given to you. And that's why you can have faith in them, because
Right.
you didn't force them into being. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I absolutely makes sense to me. You know, you know, I hear you say life. You know, I think this is the way you put it. Life as an opportunity to create our own version of heaven on earth. You know, and that's what you were creating. I mean, that's exactly what was happening. You
Yeah.
know. Oh my
And I still am today. I mean, that's to me that's life, right? So it's a every day, every moment opportunity.
To me, that's very inspiring. Jill says that's powerful right there. You didn't search for the images, you allowed them to come and they felt good. And that's exactly how you expressed it. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, so in your belief in crafting our, you know, our own version of heaven on earth, which I find truly inspiring, and I do believe also. Could you share a practical example of how someone can start, you know, taking small daily steps towards this vision? You know, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can be so super simple, right? Like, so for me, it's heaven is all about how you want to feel,
okay,
right? So for me, I want to feel free. That's the main thing. I want to feel freedom. So a good example of something that I do, and when I don't remember to do it, I don't feel as good. So is I take a walk. So like we were talking about before, like I didn't like my job when I felt chained to my desk for 8 hours a day.
right,
If I work for a few hours and then I take an hour off in the middle of the day, you know, that lunch break
yeah,
that used to be a legal requirement.
right, exactly,
If I take an hour off and just go for a walk,
right,
I feel free.
and
Right.
that is
It's a mental break. It's not a take a walk and think about the work that's back
right.
there. Right.
And so many people like to fill that hour with either eating food, talking, and socializing while they're eating, and you know, and really that hour for lunch is like, you know, like Thich Nhat Hanh says, you know, if you're going to eat the apple, you know, experience the apple. You know, if you're going to eat your lunch, experience the lunch. You know, so
Yeah.
that's what you did. You know, you took a walk to clean your mind, to, you know, be you know, you wanted to know what your thoughts were, you know, was to clean your head, so to speak.
Yeah. It definitely clears my head. And again, it's the feeling is freedom.
Yeah.
So if somebody really wants connection, then maybe having lunch with people is a great idea.
Right.
Right. So it's all what you want to feel. But you get to make those decisions rather than letting everybody else dictate what you do all the time. Like we're so used to that. Used to, well, this is the way I've always done it, or this is what somebody else expects of me. So I can't possibly do it a different way. Like that's one thing I've learned is say, well, you know what? I'm going to try doing it a different way.
Right. Because
and
the other
see
way,
how it works out.
the other way is so, it's, I mean, you feel like a prisoner. Somebody is dictating what I have to do. And you're not even thinking about it yourself. So Kathy Sweeney, hello, beautiful souls.
Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy, for being here. So, okay, so you've had a really impressive journey as far as I'm concerned. You transitioned from the corporate career to a life really filled with creativity and self-expression. Can you share with us maybe the pivotal moment that inspired this whole transformation? Is there because sometimes you say to yourself, enough is enough,
Yeah, I actually tell a story, and Maya had a collection of short stories that she put together.
And you were part of that, right?
Right, and I contributed one of my stories, and I tell a story in there about being at my kitchen sink. I'm just washing dishes, and life was pretty good at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I felt safe as far as, I had income coming in, and I had no hard things that I was dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also didn't really have any joy.
Oh, yeah, really.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, Carmen, you got to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to love your life, like, what's the point otherwise?
Right.
Like, you have to do something different. You can't just wait for something to just show up at your door and change your life and make you love your life. Like, it's up to you. And I started singing.
Oh, interesting.
And it's really interesting because I wanted to sing for many years. I would sing in the car, and I would, like, my throat would get all choked up and it hurt. And so I'd stop, but I'd get so frustrated because I just wanted to sing. And it's been this journey, because I used to sing as a kid. I used to sit down at the piano and just play these love songs out of my mom's piano book.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and I'd play the piano and I'd sing these songs. And I just loved that feeling. Like, and they're all about love, right? They were weddings. So it was her wedding book, and I love doing that. And then I think, when my brother died and I went through all of that, I let that slide. And actually there was a moment, which was a turning point, is a year after my brother died.
Okay.
And so I'm dating my boyfriend at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been dating for, 10, 12 months, something like that. And he was a musician. He was in a band. He was 2 years older than I was. I thought he was super cool. And I'm like this nerd. And how could I possibly, snag this guy,
Yeah.
But he didn't read music. And I did. I grew up reading music, basically. And so I thought, oh, this is something that I can share. And so I'm sitting at the piano with him in my parents' in my house, our living room. And I'm sitting there and we're going through something. I'm playing, I'm showing him this music. And I think I hear something in the house, like down the hallway. And so I jump up and then I'm like, oh. And I realized, I thought it was my brother. Right? Because I was so used to every time hearing a loud noise, jumping up and running to make sure he was okay. He wasn't hitting his head against a wall or something in a seizure. So, I mean, this is all in a split second, right? So I sit back down and he's looking at me like, what's going on? And I look at him and I say, I thought I heard my brother. And he looked at me like I seriously had 5 heads. Like, and he's like, and God bless him, but he said, I don't understand why you still get upset about it. It's been a year.
Oh my God. Ooh.
And looking back,
what'd you do with that?
yeah. And looking back, I can pretty confidently say that made me shut down for good. Like for many, many years. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to express my feelings. It's not safe. People are going to think I'm crazy.
Right.
And I'm certainly not going to get support,
Right.
So I decided, hey, I'm just going to suck it up and put my shell on, and I will deal with things on my own. And that's what I did. And so it took many bad relationships and finally getting to that point where I decided it's up to me. It's up to me to do something different to love my life. And and so I started on the journey. And I had another relationship where he was a beautiful soul who had an alcohol problem.
Oh.
And that was hard in many ways. And I remember being on the phone with him. We had actually already broken up technically, but I was on the phone with him, and he would get in these episodes where he really made no sense, like whatsoever. I think it's kind of a, I don't know, PTSD, something, like he would talk crazy talk. And I remember being on the phone with him in my kitchen. Again, like a lot of things happen in my kitchen for some reason.
Yeah. That's where everything bruised.
Yeah. I have other stories in my kitchen. That's a lot. So I remember I was cutting something when he called. So I had like a nice sharp knife in my hand.
Yeah.
And the cutting board. And so I'm on the phone with him, and he's talking crazy talk, and I'm getting more and more and more upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm just so frustrated by this whole situation, and I don't know what to do. Right. I don't know how to make him feel better. I don't know how to improve the situation at all. And I look down, and I have made like 20 dents in this cutting board in front of me with the handle of my knife. I didn't even realize that I had been banging the knife into this cutting board while I was talking to him. It scared the crap out of me. Because one, that's not safe.
For one thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I hung up that phone and was like, okay, he's not even here, and you are this upset. Like, this is not all him. You have some work to do on you.
Right.
And I started counseling at that point. And so I did some, professional counseling, and then I got involved in the self-development. I ended up meeting Maya, getting involved in her programs, and just really doing absolutely everything I could to create a life that I actually love.
Right.
Because it's otherwise, like, it's not just going to happen.
Right. So how did this influence your creative endeavors? I mean, you're such a creative person. I mean, so you knew that you had to change. You knew that you had to do something about your situation. You knew that it was all about you self-loving, and you couldn't express yourself, but so you had to be vulnerable. It's a vulnerable self-expression, so to speak. They must have all influenced all of that. Of course, all, our past influences are our present and therefore our future. But, you talk about self-development and how it brought you to Maya. From there, what happened with with your soul, advisory? Because
okay, so
you do a lot of that.
Yeah, we have a couple things we can talk about there. So one, for creativity, I found actually that little things like doodling can be really joyful. so people,
yeah.
for anybody that wants an easy way to put some creativity in your life, start doodling and go online, and you can find all kinds of people that, like, if you don't draw, you can doodle. But for singing, which was this thing that I wanted to do that I felt like I really couldn't, like I was super restricted.
Yeah.
I actually came across a Facebook ad for a program that was, oh, Kathy, that's wonderful. Paint by number. Yes. My mom used to,
it was
I used to do this when I was a kid. Right. So she was having, there's a woman in England, she was doing this free thing on Facebook, it was this 4-day thing, just, like a couple hours each day. And it was about singing, songwriting, and she called it, what'd she call it? Seek Your Truth. Right? So it wasn't just technical music stuff. It was about healing.
Yes.
And she actually is a music therapist. She's trained as a music therapist. And so I was like, oh, that sounds really wonderful. Yeah. Right? Up my alley. So
up your alley is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So I signed up for that, and I was like, oh, it was amazing. And just these very short time. It's a free thing, and I loved it. And I learned so much just in those couple days. And then she had a paid course, that was coming up. And I really wanted to do it. I was also signed up for this business program course at the same exact 2-month span.
So the head and the heart was going at the same time.
It's all going to happen at one time. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yes.
So I told her no. So you could schedule a call with her, like if you had questions about the program and all that. So I scheduled a call with her. I was like, okay, I scheduled a call with you because I wanted to thank you so much for your free thing that we just did.
Right.
And I'm not going to do your program because I have this other thing, and I don't want to spread myself too thin because I've done that before, so I'm trying to learn, right? Trying to learn from my past mistakes. And so she was amazing. She wasn't pushy at all, but she's like, well, I'd invite you to consider basically that my program, there's no pressure. Basically, you can do as much as you want, but I think you'll find that it actually helps you. Like, it'll feed your soul. So you can do probably more than you think. And I think this will actually help you rather than feel like you're burdening yourself more, right? By adding to your to-do list. And I was like, I don't know.
She knew that you needed it. I mean,
she knew, and I decided to do it.
Good.
I was like, you know what? I think she's right. Yeah. I felt really good doing this music stuff the last week or so, and so I did. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I started, we wrote songs throughout the whole thing, and it was only 9 weeks long. So just a little over 2 months. And I'm like, oh, I can totally write songs and I can sing way better. And I learned that I had been judging myself for, this whole issue with not being able to sing. And one of the best things that I learned from that is okay, just because you can talk does not mean you automatically know how to sing. It's just like an instrument. You actually have to learn to play an instrument, right? You don't just assume that somebody can just sit down at the piano and just start playing Chopin. It's not going to, right? You would never assume that. But some people, I think, do assume that because it's all built in, right? Everybody's got the voice. We can speak. So you should be able to just sing. It's just extended speaking. It's not actually. It's a little more technical than that. I think some people are absolutely naturally gifted that they don't have to think about it.
Right.
But for the people who aren't, you can learn it,
Right.
So yes, assuming, yeah.
Assuming, right. Such a good point about the voice being an instrument. Yes, the light bulb moment for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really helped me because it helped me stop judging myself and stop being so frustrated, going, what's wrong with me? Changing that to, oh, well, I can just learn, right? I can learn how to do this. Right. It's not like I'm incapable. I'm perfectly capable. I just haven't learned it yet.
And so many people struggle with balancing their creative pursuits, yeah. Do you think that the coaching helped a lot? I mean, we all need coaches as we move along. I mean, coaching is one of those, it's self-developing. You do need somebody to guide you,
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
direction.
One, I would never have come to all those realizations that without
Mhm.
that particular coach, right?
Right,
I would
right,
not have. Two, I will say that it is much easier to stay on the path when you have someone there holding you accountable,
right.
right? Not like with the whip, but just, when you know that you're going to show up every week or every other week or whatever it
Mhm.
is with that person, it gives you some more motivation than you might put on yourself, right? So because I mean, even with music myself, I have to remember, hey, music makes me happy. That means it's a good thing for me to do on a regular basis,
Right.
right?
And we
Rather than get pulled into the back to the old work schedule.
yeah, we just so forget about what makes us happy and joyful, right? So, yeah, Jill says that the love and accountability and the other person to reflect back, what you already know within is really huge.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a great point, actually, what Jill just said about the reflection.
Hmm.
Um, so many times where I did not see in myself what other people would see,
Right.
and I think that happens to all of us all the time.
Right. I mean, it really is crazy, that we forget what makes us joyful.
It,
You
it
know,
sure is.
I'm at a point, I don't know about you, but I'm at a point that when I take my agenda for the week, I now put in what gives me most joy first,
Oh, yeah,
my fun
abs-
stuff,
absolutely.
so that I don't forget, what makes me joyful.
I highly recommend that.
Yeah,
Yeah, is put the fun stuff in first. I do the
absolutely.
same thing. I do it on a monthly basis. I make sure that all
Mhm.
the fun stuff that we have scheduled, I put it in there. I probably could get a little bit better about doing it on a daily basis. But it's so important because
Right.
because the world around us does not encourage us to do that,
Nope.
right? We're encouraged to
Produce,
work
produce,
harder,
produce. Yeah.
produce, right? Exactly. So it's up to us to say, okay, but what makes me feel really good? Let's
Yeah.
make sure I do that. And the other stuff will happen. It will.
It just does.
It
It just
does.
does.
It
Yeah.
does.
And it's just like when I think about, what I really would love, I say that to myself all the time now. What would I love? Because I want to remember that I'm the creator of my destiny, not the master of my circumstances. So even, I know this is Mary Morrissey speaking because I was a student of hers for years, but now I go into restaurants and I go, forget the price. What would I love?
What I love. Yeah. And the other question, I use that all the time as well. What would I
Yeah.
love? And also, what would feel good?
Yeah.
To me, that's really helpful.
Right.
Even just tiny things, like even choosing, like you said, what to eat,
Yeah.
or what to wear,
Exactly.
what to have for breakfast. Like, what would feel really good to me right now, rather than this is what I always do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because if
Right.
you just keep doing what you always do, then that's exactly what you're going to get, right?
Absolutely. And I love Jill's, we are not machines. Where is that? We are not machines, may need to produce here. We're here for joy and aliveness. And yes, it's
I
such an
agree.
important question to ask all the time. I'd like to, there's two tools that you use for transformation: the soul chats and your soul songs, because you've been talking about how singing is so important to you and it brings joy to your life. Can you elaborate on what these entail and how they've impacted those that you've worked with?
Sure. So the soul chats were actually an idea that just, again, was kind of handed to me
Mhm.
and evolved. But it's really, I realized that, like you pointed out, when my brother died, I didn't have anyone Like we weren't taught how to process.
Yeah.
There wasn't anyone just there to make sure I was okay, to let me talk about how I felt or any of those things. And I realized that, looking back, like there were many times when it would have felt much better to be able to just share how I felt, right? Whether it was grief or whatever it was, but just to be able to share with somebody without worrying about any consequences. Right? Because say you got a family issue, right? And you're struggling with it and you don't know what to do, but like you feel whatever you're feeling, but you can't talk to your family about it because the issue's with them and you don't want to create more issues. So you need somebody, and this is why people go to counseling, right? You need somebody that can actually just listen to you, just let you spill out whatever it is you need to spill out, because then you can actually, you kind of like get all the gunk out, and then you're much clearer and you can actually see the way to move on from
it. It's amazing how sharing and, I know Facebook user says, if you click on StreamYard will allow you, it allows StreamYard to use your name, but you're right. Sharing is so important. And Jill says, yes, having a loving space with a powerful other is one of the most beautiful experiences. The ideal thing would be your partner, very often, but in many circumstances, the partner wants to fix things for you,
Yeah.
And when all you need is for them just to listen,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so powerful. And one of the things I realized is, I wasn't even going to go here, but one of the things I realized in my journey was that like my idea about God and universe and faith and all that was not helpful the way I had perceived it in the past. And one of the most powerful things that happened to me the last few years was getting a different perception of that.
Right.
And realizing that I am actually perfect. I am whole, and I am completely and unconditionally loved just the way I am.
Yeah, that's a hard one. It takes a long time to get to that place.
And I realized that in itself made such a huge difference for me.
Right.
It doesn't automatically fix everything, but it sure helps you stop being as hard on yourself.
And thinking enough, I'm just enough, just the way I am,
Yeah. And so what I decided with Soul Chats was I wanted to provide that for other people. Say, okay, I'm here. I'm going to listen to whatever you need to talk about.
Wonderful.
And you are loved no matter what. Like you can say anything. I will not judge you.
That is wonderful. I mean, how many people, I mean, that is so wonderful to find somebody who's just, well, I mean, you think therapy is like that, but, they're always wanting to fix something. They're always kind of, I've been to therapy. Some have worked and some have not. Those who just listened were the best, and didn't try to fix it for me, and so you're absolutely right. What a wonderful tool that is.
Yeah. And I mean, I do sometimes have like kind of intuitive hits will happen in the conversation with people.
Right.
And so I'll offer those, but it's not like you have to do this to fix your life. Like, no, like you are powerful enough yourself. You just need to be able to get the gunk out, like I said, right? So that you can move forward and use your own intuition.
Right.
So yeah, it's a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful experience for me to do it with people. I love it.
Right. No judgment, no fixing, just being and holding the space for, what is needed. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and you are powerful enough yourself. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that. When I think of you, I think of you're so authentic, and we often hear, and I remember that's how Maya defined you or described you, or whatever, if for lack of a better word. But we often hear about the importance of authenticity. Um, could you maybe share with us what that means to you, and how it's played an important role in your daily life, and certainly your creative endeavors? I mean, you know.
Yeah. For me, um, authenticity is about showing up as you, right? Not showing up as the you that you think other people will want. Um, and it's always a practice, right? None of us are perfect at it all the time, but for me, a big piece of it is vulnerability. And I think the reason I was probably known for that in Maya's circles is when I joined her first group, or my first group with her, I was in a bad space in that relationship I talked about with the
Mhm.
alcoholic. And I was really struggling. And I got on in that Facebook group, sobbing, just letting it all out. And I realized I wasn't doing it for somebody to tell me like what to do differently,
Right.
right? I I did it because I needed to feel loved,
Mhm.
right? And it helped so much. And it actually helped other people
It
at the
did.
same time. It was not intended to do that. I was literally just like, this is where I'm at,
Yeah.
And but it became this beautiful experience for everyone. And I think that if we can take that into our daily life, oh my
The
goodness,
allowing, the
what
allowing
a
oneself.
what a different world, right?
Absolutely, because and Jill is right. She says here, our vulnerability helps others. Really, it really truly does. It just gives them the permission to do the same. I mean,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
was it last week that I heard you sing that song? Was it
Mm.
Matt, your friend? I mean, I was just so emoted. I mean, the emotion was building up in me, and I was like, oh my God, I just wanted to cry with you. I felt, so thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
and you shared it on Facebook. And so thank you. And thank you for allowing me to share with other people afterwards. So because people need to allow themselves to do it so that they can help others allow themselves to do it, so to speak,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
I feel like we try, and I'm definitely speaking from experience here, we try to put on this front,
hmm
really,
hmm
of having things all under control. I'm good. Like
yeah.
people offer to help. No, it's all right. I got it. You know, like what is up with that? Just say thank you, accept the help, But I, when you're letting that guard down and letting people see if you're struggling, if you're sad, if you're whatever, and that you're happy. Like even shut that down sometimes. Like, oh, I don't want to be too happy because I don't make other people feel bad.
I,
Right.
yeah.
Um, so I think, the more we can just lean into like, okay, this is how I feel. And that's who I'm meant to be. Like, let's just
hmm
be who we're here to be. And don't worry about what anybody else thinks.
Right, exactly. I just want to, right. Want to share what Yamile here says. Literally had a conversation with her 10-year-old about this, sharing that is so
Oh.
important to be vulnerable in front of our children,
Hmm.
so that it allows them to be too, because everybody, this whole, I mean, I grew up with hearing my father say, you got to be a man, you can't cry. Or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Don't cry.
all that BS stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know how we ever lived through it, but Jill, you're right. Be who we are here to be. So yeah, so let's talk about what's up in store for you, because I know the time is just flying by and we could
Oh,
be here
sure.
forever. Now I know that you have lots of creative dreams and aspirations, and you're doing something that's coming up soon, and you're doing it actually with Jill. Could
Yeah,
you talk about a little bit about your upcoming event with Jill, please?
sure. Yeah. So Jill Douglas, who's been commenting on here, who's an amazing friend and an amazing coach. So she works primarily with women. And so she has this program that she's doing, and it involves a retreat in Colorado. And that's happening October 5th through 8th. And I'm super honored that she invited me to co facilitate it with her. It's going to be amazing, immersive, out in nature, ditch the cell phones, no internet,
Down
just
your alley.
just women out in nature and just see what happens.
Right.
And the reason for that really is because we are so distracted, and we're so, like, always, right, we're always pulled in by this,
Right.
pulled in by that, pulled in, that we don't have time to really tune into who we are,
Right.
right? What's really calling to us, what really makes us happy, you know? And so taking that time, going out in nature, appreciating connection with women,
Mm-hmm.
and really giving ourselves the quiet time and the intention of reconnecting to what our soul wants. You know, who are we at our core? What would we really love our life to be like? And really cementing that in, or, maybe not cement, but really, really feeling that,
Mm-hmm.
so that then it's not just like it's a break from your life, it's to change your life,
Right.
so you know who you are, you know what you would really love, and that you can go back home then and start making changes that align with who you really are.
Right.
And I'm just super excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun because if you don't know Jill, Jill is a hoot and a half. Like, her personality is amazing. She's so fun. She also loves to sing, so I'm sure there will be music
Oh,
involved.
that's going to be so
Um,
cool.
and she is a total nature geek, and has that background. And Colorado is
I was just going to say,
gorgeous.
why Colorado? Is that
It's gorgeous. So she picked that, but it's out in the mountains. It's going to be stunning. And I am just so honored. And I'm there really, to participate and to hold space for the others. Like we were talking about with the soul chats, right? It's there to be that, hold that sacred, safe space for others to share as this stuff comes up, because you're quiet for a couple of days without all those distractions, some stuff's going to come up, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm there to help hold people through that, and know that whatever comes up is absolutely meant to.
Mm-hmm.
And that, not to get bogged down by it, but to really see what the possibilities are. So
Exactly.
it's going to be so transformational. It's going to be beautiful, and we're so excited.
So could you tell me when again the
But yeah,
Colorado retreat is?
yeah, the retreat is the 5th through the 8th,
Okay.
October 5th through the 8th. And you can, if you're interested, you can actually just email me. That's probably the easiest, since my email is going across the ticker line. And I can give you the website for the retreat, the program.
Mm-hmm.
I can always put you in contact with Jill if you have any, more specific questions about the retreat and about the program, because it involves coaching as well. It's a beautiful program Jill's put together. So yeah, I'd highly recommend, if you are feeling like ugh in your life, you're just not feeling the joy and you're not sure where to go with it, I highly recommend you reach out. We would love, love, love to have you.
Well, I was just going to ask you, could you offer one piece of advice to our listeners for living a more authentic and abundant life? Well, this is it, folks. This is it. I mean,
This will be it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
time to feel joyful, as Jill says, and alive. And so, I mean, a beautiful place that, they're offering. You've heard Carmen; she's authentic. You've heard Jill's comments. I mean, you're in good hands here, folks. All right, just remember that it's October 5th through the 8th in Colorado. If you want any more details, you can contact Carmen by email, live.savorlife@gmail.com. And by the way, all of this will be put in the comments below this. I know that we've taken up a lot of time here. Jill, thank you for being here. Yamiele, thank you for being here. Also, I think I don't want to miss anybody. I think there was our Facebook user was here, so thank you for being here also. And Kathy Sweeney, thank you for joining us also. And I certainly want to thank you, Carmen, for your time today, and wish you the best for the Colorado retreat. I am sure that these people are in great hands. It's time to feel joyful and alive. Go for it, folks. Okay, you're going to be in great hands. Thank you, Carmen.
Oh, thank
And
you.
and I want to thank my audience for being here. And I will see you next week for another wonderful, authentic guest. And you will find out soon who that will be. Okay. Bye for now, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.